Okay, so now we're here with the third lift for strength. Okay, so we've done squat, we've done the bench press variation, and now we're looking at deadlifts. Okay, so why is it called a deadlift? Because it's a dead weight. Okay, it's right there, and you're going to lift that dead weight, which is not moving. Okay, now if you look at the deadlift, it's almost similar to a squat in most respects. The movement is the same. You go down, you come up. Only difference, there you're carrying the weight on your shoulders. Here you're carrying the weight in your hands. You are literally lifting it with your hands compared to obviously the squat. So from a grip point of view, a great lift to give confidence, because this becomes the most weight that you will carry. So when you carry this amount of weight in your hands, the confidence that you have to carry a lighter object, whether it's a tennis racket, whether it's any other form of equipment, becomes of course a lot more. So what's the lift now? Let's get straight into the lift. Okay, if you look at it, I'll show you the squat movement and then you can sort of compare it to the deadlift. So if I'm here, okay, in a squat, the position is what I said, hip first and then the rest of the body, right, you come. Now let's go up and down. Now that's a good squat, right? From here I go down, up. What do I do in a deadlift? Same thing except hands are here. Go down, carry, up. So think of it this way, movement is same, it's deadlift or it's squat. It could be anything, the knees, hip, shoulders are moving almost in the same plane. There's some minor changes but majority is in the same plane. Only difference, weight carried here comes here. Variation same, like we did the standard squat, okay, then we did a variation which is really wide like the sumo squat, same happens here. Okay, so mainly there are two variations which are done. One is the standard deadlift and then second becomes a sumo style deadlift, and then there's of course the stiff leg deadlift, which is done whereby you move mainly at the hip joint without using the knee. So how to do the basic ones first, let's get into it. So a standard deadlift is where your toes are straight, okay, you are almost where the bar is above sort of your shoelaces, okay, can be straight, can be slightly out, you have to find the angle that suits the athlete most. Okay, now from here traditionally in a competitive environment, the grip will be done whereby one is an overhand grip and one is an underhand grip, and the belief is that when you lift this way, of course even if the grip starts slipping with those heavy weights, some amount of support still comes from here, but if you're on both overhand and one starts slipping, it becomes much harder to give any support with this one. Okay, so some people go this way, some people like it this way, depends, but this is a standard process where you hold, you lift, you keep down. That's competitive powerlifting deadlift. We're looking at deadlifts for athletes. Okay, so if you have to do it for an athlete, how do you teach or how do you do it? Let the bar be close, but not so close that it rubs the shins. Some professional guys tend to have problems where the bar starts rubbing on the shins, especially if you're wearing shorts, and then sometimes there's a bit of bleeding as well. Okay, you want the bar to be maybe just half a centimeter away from the shin when you're lifting. Okay, and from here it's straight like a squat. You go down. My arms, okay, how far should it be? Straight line. You want to carry the weight straight. You want the force and the effort to be right opposite the weight. Okay, so here you don't want to be pulling like this, okay, because there's no momentum here, unlike a snatch or unlike in a clean and jerk. Okay, there's no momentum to move, you're just using brute strength. So from here the positioning won't be the best. You want it to be here and just lift. So straight down. Okay, from here you go straight, grab, grab. Okay, from here grip the bar tight, down, hip goes down, again up, staying tight in the core, hip down, very important. So as you can see, while I'm doing this, my hip is traveling. It's sort of slightly uncomfortable, but that is what makes this lift so effective. that there's a lot of intra-abdominal pressure when you go down, just like in the squat when you're down as well. A lot of force is required. So that whole connection between your ankle, knee, hip joint, spine, shoulders, scapulae, elbow, wrist, everything is involved in this. And plus you are carrying much more weight than you would do maybe while doing a bicep curl, maybe while doing a bench press. There's a lot of weight in that hand. And when you're used to carrying so much weight in your hands, the confidence you build becomes very different. Okay? So again, going through this lift is nothing but a squat with the weight in your hands. Okay? Now dropping down, a lot of people tend to drop the weight down very fast. Unless you're into competitive powerlifting where the whole aim of the lift is to lift maximum weight up, and then that's how you get, and when the referee says down, you put it down. Now, if your athletes are not looking at creating a world record with this or a national record, when you're working with athletes, teach them to drop the weight down under control. Okay, so let there be some eccentric control as well. So you'll go up, take it down, touch the floor, up, touch the floor up. So again, to show you the technique while going down, maybe just to focus a bit more on the grip now. One trick for the grip is, like I said earlier, have a towel grip where you hold here and then you can see what happens when you go this way. It's a towel grip where it's, if I'm holding my arm, I hold, and don't just hold, I twist. Okay, this will always have more greater area of contact with the bar. Okay, more friction, more gripping strength, more control. Okay, so you twist this, you twist this. Okay. So holding here, you can almost imagine as if you want to twist the bar, you want to sort of break it. Of course, it's not going to break, but you have to apply force in that direction where you're trying to almost go here and twist. This is the action you want, okay, which will engage your shoulder blades much better. So from here, grip, grip, twist, okay, up. It becomes much easier on the hands as well. Down. Again, the force while going up is nothing but this way. One is here, one is here. This is the action. Okay. From here, down, down. Okay. So one is this action. Maybe another tip while working with athletes. Again, like I said, we're not looking at making powerlifters. We are not looking at somebody who goes into competitions and wins, okay, for lifting weights. We are not interested in that part. We are interested in making maximum use of that strength aspect of the whole lift, helping the player play better. Don't get so obsessed with the lifting that you forget why you're doing this exercise. Okay? And don't definitely let this become something about ego lifting, where somebody says, I do a 100 kg squat, or I do a 100 kg deadlift, or 150. It doesn't matter unless you're into a strength sport. Okay? And then you would know that, of course, lifting heavier helps because you want to make that force translate into velocity over time and make sure that the person throws the shot put further, okay, or the hammer throw further. So while doing this, don't get into ego lifting. Make sure the grip is tight, lift. And one trick I can show you which works with athletes quite well in teaching as well is that instead of teaching them, I'll show it sideways, while coming up, instead of teaching them to just lift the bar up and as if you're lifting with the hip, teach them to lift with the hands. Okay, now you might say, what do you mean? How can I lift with the hands? So the trick is that you hold, you twist and think as if you're carrying this weight up. Use this, a lot of the shoulder girdle to lift. Okay, while coming up it would be hip down, but I'm thinking more from shoulder as if I'm doing this part. Okay, and drop down, again up and down. Instead of thinking from here, I keep a loose grip and I'm lifting more with the back. I come up, sometimes this happens, people go up and then from here, you're in a way sort of doing a stiff leg deadlift, which we'll come to. Okay, so don't end up hanging here and lifting from the back like this. Okay, this is a great way to mess your back if that's what you're interested in with your athlete. Okay, you might lift more weight but have something which messes the back. Okay, so down, it should be here, tight, lift with the hands. It's almost this. You're thinking of lifting up from here. So the legs assist you to lift more, but you're not aiming to lift with the lower back and the hip. Okay. So just to show you that part again, here, firm, nice grip, and now I'm going to lift with this part. Check my shoulders now in this lift, straight up, straight down. I'm almost focusing, I can even bend my arms as you can see. Okay. So I'm not looking at hanging and doing this. You can see the difference. Here, it's more like a sling where I'm just hanging onto it and lifting. No, you want to carry and lift the weight with your hands, right? Now coming to a sumo style squat. What's the difference here? You go wide. Okay, the area that your hip travels is less. Toes are wide. Okay. A lot of professional powerlifters will use this stance. Some still will have the narrow stance. Depends which way your body works most efficiently to lift. Not something that we're interested in because we are not looking at athletes lifting maximal weight, right? We are looking at safety first and we are looking at what we can get out of this lift for them. So toes out, okay, from here everything else stays the same, down, okay, you hold, up. You can see my hip, it travels a lot less, but you'll also notice that my hip travels further back, okay, unlike in the other one, my shoulders are much more forward. Depends on whom it suits. Now from a point of view for athletes, which athletes would need this type of strength? You would need, for someone maybe who is into lunging, a lot of lateral lunging. Badminton, it can help. It can help sports where wrestling, again, when they need to have strong groin muscles as well. So this can help for those. But again, still keeping that one bit of attention to make sure that you're not doing it with the wrong technique. Okay. So wide stance becomes one. Okay. This, like I said, straight down, straight up, what's called the sumo style. How wide? For some people, they would go literally this wide. Again, what's the right technique? In powerlifting, it depends on what you want to do. You want to lift the most weight. For us, working with athletes, you don't want to go this wide. In case the athlete who's not experienced ends up dropping the weight on their toes, that's end of story. You want it somewhere safe, where at the bottom, you want your knee above your heel. So almost perpendicular, grip from here, nice and tight, down, up, down. That's what you're looking for an athlete. Okay. Now a common one which is done is the stiff leg deadlift. Okay. What's a stiff leg deadlift? Okay. Or the variations of it. You basically, instead of flexing at the knee, you start flexion mainly from the hip. So flexion, extension happening more from the hip. So if I show it from the side, okay, you go down and you can see the difference here, up, okay, down, up. Now what do you want to do in this? You don't want your back to be rounding. You don't want this happening. It is not this and up. You want a nice stiff back, tight, grip firm, and from here, straight down, straight up, okay, straight down, straight up, okay. Now, how is this different? If you may check, what's the difference between this position and this position? Is there any difference? Okay, obviously it's the hamstrings, okay. If you look at the hamstrings, when you go down here, there's a greater engagement, there's a greater stretch that is placed on the hamstrings, okay. The back is getting loaded a lot more, okay. The glutes are involved more because there's going to be extension, okay. So from here, there's a lot more work happening directly on the glutes, on the hamstrings as well. You have to ask which sport you're looking at. Where will this help? This will help near the net, when somebody is near the net to take a shot. This will help somebody who's into backstroke swimming for their starts, okay. Backstroke swimming, where are you? You are in this position, holding, right? You want to explode from here. Lower back strength, glute strength, especially in your starts. And what's the difference between a start in a swimming backstroke event versus somebody who's doing repetitive movements? You don't have a run up to it. You're starting from a static position. Force there can make a massive difference. If you have good strength to explode out from that short distance, that is what makes the difference between those winners in 50 meters, in hundreds. The person who gets a good start is going to obviously be having a much better lead. So specific exercises for specific movements You also try to figure out which sports you have to be down and which sports it can help you. Think of it, hockey, you know, when somebody is down all the time, okay, dribbling the ball, how's their lower back position, how's this? So this exercise again can have a lot of transfer, okay. But again, how much weight? You have to be clever enough to know that you don't want to lift so much weight that you know, obviously injure yourself, okay. Now the same exercise I'll show you sideways. You can watch it with the same bar. If I turn it, okay, I'll show you the normal deadlift, I'll show you the sumo style, and then I'll show you the stiff leg, and you can probably get an idea. So here we are looking at what's called the standard deadlift, okay. Unlike in a standard squat where your toes are out, sometimes it can be a bit difficult here because your hands are close to your body. So when you go down, sometimes the knees can come in the way. So generally a lot of people tend to keep their toes straight ahead, okay. So 1, 2, I've got a nice grip now. I twist, get into that towel grip. I've activated my shoulder blades, locked them behind, okay. And I use my arms to lift. Here, down, okay. Sumo style, wide. Here you can check how far back my hip goes. Twist, down. Stiff leg deadlift, knees don't bend much. I bend from the hip. Nothing changes here, nice and stiff, okay. From here, I grab straight, okay. So 3 variations. Other variations can be there where sometimes, you know, people tend to come up with a standard deadlift, go down in the stiff, come up with standard, go down with stiff leg, and that's more just to make sure that you kind of eccentrically load the hamstrings a bit better. So let's say if I had to have heavier weights where I'm going up, okay, and from here, because I can't lift it and I don't want to take a chance with my back, I would maybe try going up in standard, come down in a stiff legged. Again, take the hip down and then use this to eccentrically load the hamstring. So various options are there, various variations are there of this, okay. But we need to know the basics. So hope this has cleared your doubts most about this. Now, doing these with dumbbells, there are variations. People do what's called a sumo style dumbbell. Sometimes you'll see these goblet squats which people hold, okay, here and do. How good are they? Okay, they are okay for maybe somebody who's beginning. But from a strength perspective, a goblet squat when you hold and you're going down, the weight is of course placed on your hands. So your hands become the limiting factor. Carrying something here, definitely you can carry more. Front squats, especially those into Olympic lifting, sort of tend to prefer to keep the bar in front and then go down and then maybe, you know, sort of control. So there's again some limitations because you cannot carry much here as much as you can carry here. So these are things you should realize, that a front squat also changes the way your hip stays and your back stays. If I'm doing a front squat, it will be a little bit more on the quadriceps and up versus if I have it behind and I'm here. So you can see the angle changes. Why should you do a front squat? Is it necessary? You have to ask yourself, what sport? Is the athlete somebody who's into wrist work, a lot of, you know, table tennis strokes? Do you want to take that chance and load them, especially if they have no history of doing heavy lifting in the past? These are the clever wisdom-based points that you have to understand, that not everything needs to be with Olympic lifting. Okay, not every lift has to be something which has to involve lifts, you know, just because it's strength and conditioning. Not every person has to get into doing a clean and jerk. And even in clean and jerk, you know, when you see people come up, there's variations. Sometimes what's called the American style where the elbow stays down, it's more extension here like this versus the European style where it's more out and then you catch, okay, and then you do the press. So lots of variations, lots of options. I'm not covering much of the explosive lifts because again that is something I feel any strength and conditioning coach who teaches this to any athlete has to do this with a lot of responsibility where you need to be extremely good at teaching, your athlete needs to be extremely good at that lifting. The chances of injury there become very high. There's a lot of strength coaches who would not suggest it for every person. If you're a rugby player who's been doing it for ages, then that's fine. Okay? But when it comes to majority of these lifts, these are pretty safe because they are quite slow. It's all about weight and it's all about sort of just base lifting. Okay? So hope that clears most doubts about deadlifts when you do it with a bar, okay, and with even with dumbbells, the variations which are available. Thank you.